for another episode of the Coming Soon podcast with Spider.
Hello, everybody. Spider here, Coming Soon podcast, of course, San Antonio, Texas. Of course, my guest today, of course, Michelle Hanson. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. They kept me hostage at work a few hours later, so thank you for bumping this a few hours. Of course,
Oh,
I think you were an hour ahead, correct?
I am. I'm on Eastern time.
Eastern Standard
So
Time.
thank you for taking the time to talk with me. I really appreciate it.
No, not a problem. And of course, I mean, I have you here for a few reasons, and of course, it's not your backdrop, which is actually pretty cool. But we're here to talk about your experience, your upbringing, as far as I mean, you've worked on a few, I believe, mini TV series, and then you directed a short for Final Girls.
Um, yeah. So I've done independent films for almost 10 years now. Um, all horror films, and they're through my own. I call it my production company. I only produce my own work. So I want to say like 10 to 15 different films that I've worked on. And I had a web series under a different production company that's still on YouTube. So yeah, I tried to do horror art in some way as much as I can.
No, and of course, I got to ask you, why horror? I mean, I know I should know the answer, of course, but I mean, for yourself, what is it about horror that just kind of captivated you?
Um, I I say that horror is in my blood. When I was 4, I saw Jaws for the first time, and ever since then, it's just been that adrenaline rush. I guess I appreciate the psychology behind most of the horror films, especially now. Um, and of course, Final Girls, you can never go wrong rooting for them.
No, no, definitely, and I agree. Now, I got to ask you because, of course, I mean, you said Jaws, right? I mean, was that the first film that you ever saw that had horror related, or that was horror related?
Yeah. I was 4 years old. I guess the Incredible Hulk, the TV show that was
Yeah.
on when I was a kid, but that was too scary, when I was 4 or 5. But whatever, Jaws was it, and it prompted me wanting to be a marine biologist, um,
Oh, nice.
which I didn't go into. I went into criminology instead. But yeah, so I read up on sharks, and they kind of became like a little hobby that I had, and so yeah, I will talk sharks anytime.
Nice. I can definitely, I have dogs, so it's one of those where one of them sneezes and I'm like, bless you, or you know what I mean. It's just weird, they become part of the
Right,
family.
right.
But I can relate. As far as sharks, I've never been close to one. I mean, I used to live in Florida for a while, and of course, we did have sightings and stuff like that out there by Venice Beach and Sarasota, where we used to live at the time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love the water though. I mean, that's the thing. I always tell people as a kid, I almost drowned twice. In the
Oh.
river. And one of them, of
Mhm.
course, it was the whole like, don't get too close to the stream, and there I go, right? I mean, take me, and
Yeah.
they jump in there and come get me. But even then, I mean, I never really. I always loved it, just the tranquility. I love being
Yeah.
underwater. I love to submerge and just it felt like I was in space, right? So I mean,
Mhm.
I'm just glad the whole drowning thing didn't, freak me out and keep me away from it. But I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, I'm very glad you survived the
yeah.
potential drown. Very glad
No,
to
yeah,
hear.
yeah. Because I mean, from one of them, it's just like they said it took me like pretty far, pretty far. My brother
Yeah.
ran and jumped in and was able to grab me, and I'm like, wow, what could have been, unfortunate, could have been very unfortunate, but
Mhm.
here I am. So I'll take it for what it is. I mean, let me ask you. I mean, when it comes to water, I mean, are you close to water right now?
Um, no, there's lakes and rivers. I'm in Ohio. I guess we have Lake Erie when it's not on fire, if that still happens. I'm actually not a very good swimmer. I took swim classes, when I was a kid. But I can basically just do a doggy paddle.
Oh yeah.
And so anytime I go in the water, very rarely is it above my waist.
Wow. I gotta say, because for me, like as kids, I mean, of course, we used to go walk by ourselves, like in elementary school. I didn't know how to
Mhm.
swim, so of course, when we got to the pool, the lifeguards like, "Hey, y'all stay in the shallow water," and so it was like till I realized that I could float. Like I kind of just laid there
Mhm.
one time, and I was like, oh damn, I can float. And I just started moving my arms, and there we go. I started swimming, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, of course, let me ask you, because of course, when it comes to movies, I mean, I see a lot of posters, cool posters behind you. Are all those films
Mhm.
kind of like movies that inspired you, that kind of motivated you to keep creating?
Um, the majority, yes, I can see it it in the camera. So Aliens, of course. When I was a little girl in grade school, my friends called me Newt because they thought that I looked like Newt from the movie. So that kind of always stuck. And of course, the Crow is legendary with Brandon Lee. And then Ghost Ship has the best cold open in a movie that you will ever see. It's just jaw dropping.
Oh yeah.
13 Ghosts is amazing. And of course, Jaws is back there. Love Tales from the Crib. And Pumpkinhead, I just thought the poster was really cool. So I got it.
And it's funny. I think I've interviewed a lot of the people, actors that were on there. A lot of the costume actors for Pumpkinhead. I met the guy.
Hmm.
I've been doing this convention thing religiously for like past 2 years, and I mean, through the podcast, it's been 2 years. I've been a fan of horror for forever. I mean, I was a kid myself at one point. And
Hmm.
yeah, for me, it was always. And I was gonna go back to that question, but for me, it wasn't until like we grew up with there was 10 of us. Mom and dad, and then 8 siblings, right? And
Okay.
so we had a 2-bedroom home, and it was basically like you slept wherever there was room. And like one day, I was just like, oh, you know what? I'll sleep on the sofa, and I realized I was like, man, the TV's right there. Like I can watch TV late, and I did for a while. Every once in a while, my mom
Hmm.
would wake up and tell me to go to sleep. But because of that, I mean, I stayed up late watching Twilight Zone, black and white, reruns, Alfred Hitchcock, black and white reruns.
Hmm.
Um, that's kind of what drew me into it. I was just like, man, I had this freedom, for a while, and I just started watching as much horror as possible. But for yourself, I mean, were mom and dad okay with you watching horror movies?
Um, My dad he was somewhat of a horror fan, so he introduced me to the 1950s Them, about the big
Oh, nice.
ants, and
Yes.
the original The Thing. So he introduced me to that, and then when I got to be, I don't know, I'm gonna say 10 or 11, I started watching Nightmare on Elm Street and became thoroughly obsessed with Freddy Krueger and, of course, Nancy Thompson.
Oh
And
yeah.
I went to a Catholic school who did not appreciate my love of horror. And they made me go and talk to a psychologist at the school to
Because of
see
that.
why I loved horror so much. And they asked me questions like, how do you feel when you see an animal hurt? Do you ever want to hurt people? Stuff like that. I'm like 10 years old. Like, no, I don't want to hurt people. I just like Freddy Krueger. so,
I let them hurt
so
people.
yeah. So after that, my mom was like, okay, no more, especially no more Nightmare on Elm Street. So I really wasn't allowed to watch horror until I got to be in my late teens. But I did sneak a few horror movies here and there when I was a kid.
Nice. No, you see, and then that's one of the things too, because myself, I was really big in indie music, punk rock and hardcore music. And so I was
Mhm.
out a lot like during the 90s. So I missed a lot of the 90s films. And it wasn't until like years later that I had to go back and kind of like, oh man, like I missed this. I was watching, by the time I got back into movies, I was watching like part 2 and 3, so I had to backtrack and figure out where everything started. But yeah, but other than that, I mean, I've always been a fan. I've always, loved movies when it comes to the music. I mean, for me, punk rock was always like the thing, because it was either punk rock or metal that was playing with the
Yeah.
horror movies back then. So I mean, I watch a movie. I mean, of course, I want to jam out. I listen to music that's out there. The character buildup, that's real big for me. I mean, I want to see a movie and actually see a storyline. I don't want it to
Right.
be like half chasing, half people just the whole time. Somebody's just getting chased, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like it's just one of those things. But this is kind of why I'm leading up to this, because of course your film. I mean, this is something
Hmm.
that is on Tubi right now. It is streaming. I did watch it. I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, the whole
Thank you.
um you have put on there no budget. so before I get into why I liked it, what's the no budget? Because I saw where you guys were shooting, and I'm like, okay, were those like in disclosed like areas? Like, did you guys get permission, or was it
Mhm.
middle of the park? Where you guys at?
Sure. So I rented an Airbnb for the weekend. We shot this in 2 days. We used the Airbnb for the interior shots as well as the exterior shots. That was basically their backyard. We had about, I think, an acre's worth of wood to work with. So I say no budget because I learned that anything under $1 million is considered low budget, and mine was only 7,000. So when you compare a $7,000 budget to $1 million budget, that's huge.
Yeah.
So I'm sticking closer to no budget in describing it.
No, and let me ask you. I mean, was the whole time were you thinking, okay, I want to shoot this in 2 days, or did that just happen? I mean, was it like, okay, you know what, let's just keep shooting?
Yeah, well, that was the plan, to shoot it in 2 days. Most of my movies are shot in one day, sometimes 2 days. I have a lot of friends who are actors, and we all have busy schedules. So sometimes it's like, okay, this is the day that we can all get together. Let's shoot as much as we can, you know. So yeah, that was the plan. The original thought behind it was there are some horror movies that aren't very well written, and it feels like, did they just make this up as they went along? And so I kind of wanted to do that as an experimental film, kind of make it up as we went along. So all the dialogue in season 666 is completely improvised by the actors.
Yeah. And I was gonna ask you about that because I read that and I was thinking, man, because here, like, I mean, I'm in San Antonio and Austin, they have this thing where and I apologize for not knowing the actual terminology, but it's a like a contest where you shoot, like you have 2 days to shoot. Like one day you go in, you get your they give you your actors, or I think you bring your own actors in, but they tell you,
Mhm.
okay, you're gonna film a drama, or you're gonna film, and you have one day to, okay, you know what, write it, set it up, and then go shoot it
Oh,
the next
that's the
day.
the 48-hour film festival?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
is that something? I mean, I when they were when I first heard about that, I was like, you know what, that's pretty cool because it's like, I mean, there's pressure, but at the same time, it's just like, man, let's just shoot it, and I mean, like you
Mhm.
said, you have experienced actors, you have people that have done it. You know who you're working with, that you feel comfortable, like they're gonna do it and do it correctly. So there's no time lost. I mean, of course, I'm sure there's
Sure.
a couple scenes where you have to shoot a few times, but I mean, is that kind of what you were going for? Just like, hey, let's knock it out, because obviously it's not the first time you've done that.
Right. So a few of the actors that are in the film actually participate in a 48-hour film festival. The difference with my movie and 48 is I didn't have to also edit it within the 48 hours that we had. So we could obviously have to be a bit longer. I think most of the 48-hour films that they do end up being like 3 to 5 minutes somewhere along there. But yeah, just focusing on having it be 2 days. That was the initial plan, mostly for budget reasons and then also time for the actors.
No, and of course, I mean, yeah, when you rented the spot, I mean, was it like, okay, you guys are going to stay there? Was there everybody able to kind of like
Mhm.
just crash out? And oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, at
Yeah,
least you didn't have to
well,
like,
yeah, the makeup artist actually, she stayed because she was out of town, but the rest of us, it was like a 20-minute drive from our house.
oh, okay, yeah.
And then with planning the scenes, I probably looked at the Airbnb photos from every possible angle and like tried to figure out where the kitchen would match up, like where the dining room is and how the outside matched up, just so I could be prepared with like how I could set up the scene before we filmed it.
Man, well, that's pretty amazing. I mean, the fact that well, I mean, you said, of course, you didn't edit, within those 2 days, but I mean, how long did it take you to edit the film and finally be able to put it out there?
Well, we actually shot it in the summer of 2021.
Oh,
And
wow.
when I originally filmed it, the idea, like, I wanted it to be a scary movie. I wanted it to be like very, very scary. And I hired improv actors who mostly do comedy. So just by their nature, they kind of went a comedic route with the dialogue,
Yeah.
and I wasn't exactly happy with it at the time. So I kind of took a 2-year break from it to just get over myself and to get over the original vision I had. And then I started watching it and I saw the comedy and I saw the humor and I was like, oh, this needs to be a comedy. I need to lean it into the comedy of it. So my friend and I, who did the editing, we went through and we would work on it for like 2 hours a week here and there when our schedules allotted. So it took about 4 months of doing 2 hours here and there to be able to edit it and do the closed captioning, do everything that goes into post production for a film, and then finally edited on TUBI.
Now, of course, I mean, and of course, that's great that you were able to look back and say and see what it was, for what it was. I'm
Mhm.
saying,
Yeah.
but of course, the time frame. I mean, because compared to a short, because that's something that you've done before. What
Mhm.
what is the time frame for you? I mean, like for a short to be a short, like what's the time frame? Like 25, 30 minutes?
Uh, yeah, it's something that I learned through the editing process. I thought anything 45 minutes or less,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, anything under 60 minutes was considered a short film. But I learned through Tubi standards, it's anything that's 45 minutes, it's considered a feature length. So season 666 runs at like, I think 52 minutes and it's considered a featured length. But hopefully people appreciate that it's a short feature length because who has time for a 2-hour movie these days?
Let me ask you because of course you could have. I'm sure you could have stopped at 60 minutes, but I mean, was there like okay, you know what, you were happy with the final edit and you were like, okay, yeah, this is what I want, and that's it.
Yeah, because the dialogue was improvised, there was a lot of rambling in some of the scenes in order for the actors to get the feel for the scene and to see where they were going with it. So if I had to stretch the movie out for it to be 90 minutes, it could have been, but it would have been very, very boring in some parts. So just dragging it on. It was best to keep the dialogue very tight and just get the story moving.
No, you see, and the reason I was asking was because, like, for me, like an hour and 25, an hour and 30 minutes is usually like key for me.
Sure.
Anything over an hour and a half, it's just for me, it's too long. And I'm like, man, and a lot of times, a lot of films that I've seen, I just,
Mhm.
there's parts that I'm like, man, did they just put that in there? You know what I mean? Just to make it longer.
Right.
And a lot of films could end sooner, it's just I guess, and it's one of those, I guess, if unless it goes to like a like Blu-ray where you can put behind the scenes or different, you know what I mean? Like they
Mhm.
can see other scenes that weren't on the film. But
Mhm.
yeah, but I mean, I enjoyed it. When I did watch it, I didn't pay attention to the time, but I was just like, oh man, that's it. Like I realized it was short, less than an hour, which
Right.
is good. I was at work when I watched it, but of course, I was taking my breaks and just kind of going back and forth. But yeah, but the film, I mean, like I said, I mean, the storyline when it came to the characters, I enjoyed. I was curious about the dialogue until I read it because I was like, man, that was good chemistry, and I was wondering like did they have fun while they were out there with it? Because it just seemed like everybody was just kind of hanging out, and then you know what I mean. So,
Yeah.
uh, okay, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. We are all friends in the theater community anyway. So it was just friends hanging out for a weekend.
It's-
We played really well off each other, and yeah, it was a really really great time.
No, and of course, I mean, I know you have posted a review. So, I mean, what are some of the things that people have been saying about it? I mean, have people been commenting or messaging you? And
Yeah, of course, family and friends are being very supportive for it. A lot of mutuals on TikTok and, of course, Instagram and Facebook, they've reached out and said how much they enjoy it, especially for being a no budget film. There are there are some negative reviews, especially on Letterbox and wherever, and then that's fine. I
yeah,
know that my movie is far from perfect, and it's fair. People can have negative reviews for it. I feel that it makes me a better filmmaker when I see what others kind of have trouble relating to, or what they don't appreciate about a film. So I take it as constructive criticism, even if it really wasn't meant to be.
No, no, for sure. You see, one of the things, I mean, especially when it comes to horror movies, because there are some movies out there that I just don't get and I don't like, and I don't bash them. I don't like, oh man, that's horrible. But it just wasn't for me, And one of
Mhm.
the hashtags I always put on there is not my horror, because a lot of times it's
Yeah.
not for me, but I always tell people like, hey, you know what, watch it. Maybe it works for you or maybe you enjoy it, but on this one,
Hmm.
the fact that the chemistry was there was what got my attention because I was like, okay, you know what? I can see this. I can see myself, hanging out and
Hmm.
just kind of videotaping, kind of like a documentary where everybody's just handheld camera and,
Yeah.
but I got that
Yeah.
feel from it. And now, of course, and this is the image, of course. I mean, for those that are watching, um, this is a movie that we're talking about, of course, season 666. And for those, of course, it is on Tubi, so everybody, go out there watch it. I mean, it doesn't cost anything. It is a great film. It's less than an hour, so you won't take too much of your time, but it is great. It's easy to follow through. One of the things that I enjoyed, I mean, when it came to the character was the no budget. I loved because I could see it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, they had to use this, or they just used.
Hmm.
And for me, it's more artistic. It gives it a little bit more character. Um, what, like my buddy, he loves all these new Godzilla movies, and I enjoy them. I like them, but I'm like, man, I'm old.
Hmm.
I'm like, I miss the old Japanese films, like the new one that was in subtitles. That one I got a kick out of it because it wasn't subtitles, so it was a
Hmm.
little nostalgic. But yeah, I like, I don't like. I'm not too big on CGI. I'm not too big on,
Yeah.
that has to be used. I get it, but it's just I'd rather it be people using props, people using, where yeah, you could see that it's not real blood. Yes, you can see that it's not real, but if you follow along and if it's that good, then you just watch it. You
Hmm.
watch it for what it is,
Yeah.
and that's it. At the end
Yeah.
of the movie, you can just kind of like, hey, it was great, it was good, it was bad. They
Hmm.
can of course put their own retrospect on it, but yeah, but it was great. I mean, I enjoyed it. Like I said, I mean, I have other indie filmmakers that kind of do not the same work. I mean, everybody's different, but the
Hmm.
same concept where everybody's having fun. And I'm like, man, that was a fun movie. Like it was horror, it was funny, it was, it was all over the place, but the chemistry, that's what gets me.
Yeah.
So because of that,
Thank you.
great job.
My introduction to horror was movies from the 70s and 80s, where all horror was low budget back then because it still had that stigma to it, right? It's not what horror is now, where it's reached mainstream audiences where they have multi-million-dollar budgets. So when making my films, I tried to keep to a no budget to low budget, not just because it's cost effective. I pay for everything out of pocket. I don't do crowdfunding or anything. I worked overtime at my job, and I did gig jobs like DoorDash and whatever, just to be able to pay for everything. So I like sticking to low budget because it has that nostalgia feel to it.
No, you see, and there's films that like Saw. I mean, of course, the movie
Mhm.
was just in one room. I mean, there's a phone booth. I think was the other one. There's a lot of films out there that didn't take a lot of money to make, and they're freaking great.
Right.
And that's what I like. I like something that has a great storyline, does have a hook, does keep me entertained, does keep me following along. I don't get sidetracked. I don't, and then that's what
Hmm.
I want to watch. I mean, I'm constantly. I wake up in the morning and I'm watching YouTube, or I'll put it on Tubi, and my girl's like, oh, this early, and I'm like, man, it's never too early, right? I'm trying to,
Right.
but it's just but if for me, it's white noise, it's white background. I'm paying attention, but I'm getting ready, and I'm kind of like, okay, you know what, and that's how I watch it because I mean, I'm like I said, I missed a lot of the '90s, so I'm behind already as it is, and so many indie
Okay.
films coming up that it's just like, man, I'm trying to catch them when I can. Now, of course, I mean, season 666, the title. What does that mean for you? I mean, where did you come up with that?
Actually, it was the actor who plays Raymond Burroughs, the bad guy in it. He's the one who came up with the title. Um,
Right.
Sometimes I'll film a movie and I won't have a title yet, and I'll wait during the editing process to see, like, is there a word or a theme that keeps coming up that kind of resonates with the film.
Amazing.
And since the movie takes place as it's a reality game show,
Yeah.
So it's in the 6th season of the game show, and all the TikTokers and fans of the show refer to it as season 666. And that's what the Mark is his name, who plays Raymond Burrows. He was like, "Oh, well, what season are we in?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I mean, the game show's been on for a while, so maybe the 5th or 6th season." And he was like, "What if we call it season 666?" And I was like, "Yes, yes,
Nice.
that is what we are going to call it." And it just kind of stuck.
No, you see, and I like that because it's just like with a lot of things I've done in my life when it comes to like starting businesses or doing something. I'm not real big on oh hey, this is part one, volume one. Like I always started like at 13, or I always started at some number, because it's just, for me, it's like I don't want people to think like, oh, this guy just starting. You know what I mean? Like I want people to
Right,
know that I've been working, because even though it's a new company, I've been doing this for a while. And so I like that,
right.
just follow up. I mean, they kind of, because I will say this, when I saw that and I was like, damn, I said, is that an episode? Like, are they in that season? Like, I thought it was like episode 666 for some reason. And I was just like,
Mhm.
man, there's no way I'm going to catch up. So when I found out that it was a movie, I said, okay, there we go. Because I was like, man,
Oh
I was
no.
way
So
but
there is a running joke with the cast that if we make a sequel, we'll have to call it season 777. So
I was just going to say that. I was going to say, you know what? That way people are like, man, what happened in between? It can be like a little mystery.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, well, let me ask you on that note. I mean, is there going to be a sequel?
There isn't anything in the works. However, the surviving characters are all very interested in doing it. We've also joked that we can do a prequel series with the 2 producers that are in the film, and we'll call that season 555. So it's just an ongoing joke of how many numbers we can throw in there.
Nice. I was just thinking that too. I was gonna say, man, it's got to be 555, man. So, I mean, that's definitely pretty cool. But of course, I mean, the actors. I mean, of course, you already knew some of the actors, or you've worked with them. I mean, you said they're
Mhm.
local to your town or city, but of course, the work that they've done. I mean, you said that when they first they brought a comedic kind of feel to it. I mean, you said you
Mhm.
weren't happy with that, but I mean, what were you expecting? I mean, when you first brought him in, I mean, were you thinking, did you kind of give him like, hey, you know what, this guy, it's your dialogue, but this guy's gonna be like the bad guy. This guy's gonna be. I mean, what was the pitch? Because of course, I mean, they just made it fun and have fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I approached each actor and I told them my idea that I wanted to do a improv horror movie, and the majority of the improvers already enjoyed horror movies anyway, so they were definitely in. They knew their horror stuff. There's only one actor who she really isn't big into horror movies, and I told her, "Well, watch Scream." Because that's who I want to base your character off of, one of the characters in Scream, um, and she was like, "Oh, that's actually the only horror movie I've ever watched. So yes, I can totally do that." Um, so before each scene, I had it written out of where I wanted it to go. So I had the foundation of the movie set. It was just the dialogue that was made up. So before each scene, I told the actors, "This is where you need to go." That's my cat. Um, this is where the scene needs to go. So in your dialogue, get it from point A to point B. Um, so there was one scene where the 2 actors, they have conflict in their conversation, and I told the one actor, "Okay, this is what you need to try to convince your scene partner to do." And then I told the scene partner, "Whatever she says, say no to it." And then they just went with it.
Nice. Now, I can definitely I can get the whole improv. I mean, I've been real big when it comes to, and that's
Mhm.
another thing too, because I've seen comedy shows like that where they just kind of set, back and forth, and it's just they just feed off whatever they have. So of course,
Yeah.
for me, when you said improv, and if I would have been there, you would have said, hey, we're gonna do an improv. I think the first thing that would have popped in my head would have been comedy. So I
Mhm.
don't know if that's why they went that route, but
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I like the concept, and of course, I mean, if you do a prequel and you go with season 555, what's going to be the take? Are you going to be like, hey, let's keep it the same? I mean, Make it fun?
It would probably follow the two female producers that are in the movie. They kind of have this budding relationship blooming between the two of them. So we would probably explore that backstory a little bit, as
Right.
well as go more in depth with how the game show was created, and yeah, just kind of see why season 6 happened, because something big happens, to make it. My friend calls it today's the day, and he asks, why is today the day that we are watching these characters' lives? What's the big moment that happened today that makes it worth
Yeah.
watching? So yeah, so we would explore why season 6 was the day that the audience is going to watch.
Nice. You see, there's I mean, I'm not a filmmaker. I don't want to make films, but I do want to shoot
Yeah.
video. And there's a lot of ideas that I have, and I'm always like, man, like I want to do this, and I do have to get on it. I mean, it's just time's in essence right now, um, but I like the whole improv. I mean, I want to use that, and I'm gonna take that from
Do,
you. I'll
do
give
it,
you credit. I'm
yeah.
definitely curious now because I'm like, man, that'd be funny. I mean, it would. I'm curious to see what I would get. Like even if people just kind of but
Hmm.
I do have a couple of short video reels that I want to do. I mean, it's not even a short film, right? I just want to do like 2 3 minute clips of ideas that I have, and a lot of them are
Yeah.
crossovers. I'm real big with in comic books. They used to have that what if, and I always
Hmm.
loved the fact that, hey, what if the X-Men fought Marvel, or not Marvel, but Fantastic Four or whatever, and then so,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I want to do with this, with the project. But the improv thing, I like it. It's just something new. I mean, like I said, you don't know what you're gonna get. So of course, these
Hmm.
guys are funny, and they can actually feed off each other. And I expect good things, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, they are comedic improvers. There are some improv troupes that do dramatic improv, um, but I just didn't know anyone, and I'm so happy with the actors that I used for season 666. They turned it into something that I didn't know it needed to be, and I'm so glad that I followed them into this.
Nice. Now, of course, I mean, I'll ask you because, of course, you said it took you about 2 years after
Mhm.
to finally edit. On if other ones do come out, I mean, are they going to come out sooner?
Yeah, yes, yes, definitely. So because
Oh, I think I lost you guys. Hold on. Let me send her a quick invite and have her jump back on. But of course, everybody out there, Spida here, coming soon podcast. I am here with Michelle Hanson. Let me wait for her to jump back on this. Great conversation. Talking about the film season 666. For those that have been listening, of course, it is on Tubi. Take it for a spin. It's definitely funny. Has a lot of character buildup. There we go. There we go. Here we
oh,
go. Nope.
sorry.
There you go. I was doing the
Okay,
little. I figured you jump back on, but I was
yeah.
plugging in so people can watch it though.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
No, no, not a
So
problem.
because I fund everything, it does take some time to build up some money to be able to pay people properly.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the shorter movies that I do that are 10 to 15 minutes long, I put them on YouTube, and that's where they live. And I'm happy with it on there.
And let me ask you, and I'm definitely going to subscribe to the YouTube channel. But what is it for those that are watching?
It's Fearopoly Films, so it's kind of like Monopoly, but with fear. So
Oh, okay. Oh,
Fearopoly,
okay.
and there's quite a few movies on there. Last summer, I did a small project called Summer of Fear, and it was one of those, I just got any friends that were interested. Some scripts I wrote, some scripts I asked my friends to write if they were interested in getting writing credit, and we just made little scary stories, anything that dealt with fear. When those are anywhere from like 2 minutes to 15 minutes long, and so those are
Nice.
on YouTube as well.
Okay, and let me ask you because, of course, I mean, you say you've been doing this for about 10 years.
Mhm.
Throughout this time, I mean, have you acted as well, or has it just been behind the camera?
I have acted. I've been involved in theater for about 30 years. And I started as an actor. And then as I made my way through theater, I realized I'm not that good of an actor. And I really appreciate being more in control of the scene. So directing and writing, I kind of fell more into that. Some of my movies, I'm definitely in one, two for sure, but the second one hasn't come out. I might be in three. I can't remember. I know I'm in two for sure, but I might be in three. And sometimes it's just I need an extra person, for like a 3-second scene. I'm like, I'm not gonna bring someone in when I can walk on and say, "Hi, Susie," or whatever the line is, and then jump back behind the camera.
No, and I mean, yeah, and then I was gonna say too, because even like you mentioned earlier, like a lot of the older films, I mean, they were, very low budget, and a lot of times,
Mhm.
we were talking about it the other day, but with Halloween, it's just like the camera guy that they were like, hey, put this mask on, like they
Yeah.
were running out of people, so it's just like it happened because it did, and it's like a lot of those happy accidents because a lot of people did great, I mean, iconic, I mean, they
Hmm.
at that time, one of the things, excuse me, when I talk to the actors and I always ask them, like, like, yeah, what were you thinking about the film? And they're like, man, it was just a job. Like, we're auditioning like every week and, whatever we got. So
Right.
they were like, we didn't even know it was a big thing till like years later. And they're like, hey, everybody's, crazy about this film. And they're like, that film? Like, really? Like,
Yeah.
but but yeah, you forget that people, I mean, actors, they're constantly looking for work and, jumping on
Hmm.
films left and right. So it's
Yeah.
just one of those, like, you never know which one's going to hit.
Yeah. I go to horror conventions, and of course I'll listen to panel discussions. And it's so funny to hear the actors say, I did this movie 20 years ago because I had to pay my electric bill. And now I'm signing autographs because of it, 20 years later. And like, that is the life. That would be amazing.
I know. I wish, man. I mean, imagine that. And even like, you had mentioned earlier, I was in Houston for the Houston Horror Film
Mhm.
Festival, and it was a blast. A lot of the guests that were on there, for a majority of them, I had already met or seen here in San Antonio or Austin or Bastrop. But it was fun. It's just
Yeah.
everybody. It was like kids in the candy store per se. Everybody just had fun. Everybody's just meeting people, networking. Taking photos, and I was one of them. It was definitely a blast.
Hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
let me ask you. I mean, when it comes to the films, have you been putting your films in festivals, or has everything just been, like you said, straight to YouTube, straight to stream?
Everything has been straight to YouTube, and this is my first venture into TUBI. I applaud those who are brave enough to put their film into a film festival. I'm not quite there yet. I consider it. I want to compete with my friends,
Yeah.
and every indie filmmaker, whether I've met them or not, I consider them a friend because of the shared experience that we have in filmmaking. So I will always root for the indie filmmaker at a film festival, but for now, it just isn't for me.
And I was gonna say too, because I mean, I know a lot of them travel with them, and it's just like,
Mhm.
man, I mean, more power to them. I've got a guy here locally, and he's on like literally traveling with his movie, and he's been taking it like different states, and I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, man, like, I interviewed him, and when he told me about that, I was like, okay, like, but yeah, he's doing it, and I'm like, dude, that's
Yeah.
amazing because he's being able to every city town he's hitting on, like, I mean, his posters up, put up and everybody's lining up, and
Mhm.
happy for him, because I mean that's one of those like risk, because
Right.
a lot of times, when I ask the filmmakers and I'm like, man, when you do the premiere, what are you thinking? And they're like, man, I'm nervous. Like, I'm like, are they gonna laugh at the right time? Are they gonna, like, to
Yeah.
see if I get it? And it's just like they're like, man, after the film, it's like, okay, I can breathe now. And it's a lot of pressure,
Mhm.
like you said,
Yeah.
I mean, you get your pros and cons, and people like it,
Yeah.
people don't, but I mean, you
There's
you
that
mentioned
movie.
earlier. I'm sorry?
There's that movie that recently came out. Talk to me, talk to the hand,
Yes.
talk to me.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called. That it's kind of an filmmaker's dream come true, to where they filmed it, they featured it at film festivals, and then some was it A24 that
Yeah.
picked them up, or Shutter, or somebody pick them up, and they are well known now, and that's like the dream.
No, yeah, you see, because there's I did this thing a while back where I was kind of like, man, you know what? Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of films I haven't seen. I'm behind
Mhm.
right now, like 6 films, so I'm like, I'll catch up. But I
Yeah.
start out. It popped in my head, and I was thinking, like, man, like I'm trying to catch up with films that were filmed here in the U.S. And I
Mhm.
was like, I wonder if of course, I miss films in Australia. I miss films in England. So I've been kind of going down that rabbit hole, and I'm like, damn, I'm way behind. I mean, I started going into like international films and a
Mhm.
lot of good ones. I was like, wow, it's sad. It's unfortunate that they didn't get picked up and go, national when they did, because a lot of them are
Right.
damn good.
Yeah. Yeah, you are correct.
Now, of course, season 666. I mean, we mentioned it. As far as merchandise, have you guys been doing that, or is that just something you're not looking into?
Um, I jokingly put a T-shirt on Redbubble, mostly because I just wanted one for myself. And then I I let the cast and crew know, hey, if you want any type of season 6 merchandise, it's on there. Get whatever you want, a journal, a thermos,
Yeah.
whatever, to your heart's content. But really, that's just it. If you want a T-shirt, it's on Redbubble. That's as
Nice,
far as
nice.
it went.
No, and I was gonna say too, because of the name, I'm pretty sure people will get it because of the name. But of course,
Mhm.
hopefully jump on the film and watch it as well. Now, when it comes to the movie, of course, you said this was a project. It's been years back. Did you ever think about like having it released as far as like on social, what is it called, like a DVD or Blu-ray or other?
Sure. Yeah. So the distributing company that I went through after the movie reaches a certain monetary goal, they approach the filmmaker and they say, we can release X amount of DVDs if this is what you want to do. So it's just now been released on TUBI, so I don't have any financials or anything. I don't know if it's going down that route, but yeah, if one day, hopefully, it will be on DVD, and I know a few of the cast members would like their own copy. So
Yeah.
if anything, they'll at least buy it.
No, no, yeah, and I was gonna say too, because I mean, I myself, I mean, I've got DVDs behind me, I've got VHS, I just recently started picking up Blu-ray. Like I had been without Blu-ray my whole life. One of
Mhm.
the films that I actually have a small perk in, like, came out on Blu-ray and not on DVD, and I was like, man, well, I'll order it, But another friend of mine, he was at the Houston, Horror Film Festival, and I picked up. I had already seen their movie. They allowed me to stream it, which was awesome. And so I bought one. I was like, dude, it was that good. I want to be able to just
Oh,
grab
nice.
it and put it on. But yeah,
Yeah.
now I'm collecting Blu-rays, and it's just like I never. Not that I was like against it, but it just never happened. Everything was on DVD or it was streaming. So, but yeah,
Mhm.
I'm definitely picking them up though.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask, because of course, I mean, we talked about the backdrop and I mean the posters. Is that
Mhm.
your studio? Is that what is that? Or are you in your
This is
studio?
I'm in my basement right now. This is my multi-purpose room. It's my craft room. It's my TV
Oh yeah.
room, whatever. So I call this my everything but a Nightmare on Elm Street room, because the office on the main floor of my house is all a Nightmare on Elm Street. It
Oh,
has
nice.
action figures on the wall. It has a lot of the nostalgia finds of like the CDs, the cassette tapes, VHS, the computer game, anything Freddy Krueger that was made in the 80s and 90s is pretty much in that room. So to be fair to Michael and Jason and everybody else,
Yeah,
I have this room, the everything but a Nightmare on Elm Street room.
man. I was gonna say, I mean, I love when it comes to Friday the 13th. I mean, of course, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mhm.
I've been having this thing, and I've got an old Hollywood video, I guess, video store poster, the ones that they used to hang from the ceiling, and it's
Yeah.
actually the what was it, Freddy versus Jason. So I've been like, they're bringing like this weekend. I'm getting to meet one of the actors that came out in that movie, and so I'm kind of like, man, I'm getting all these signatures from that movie. So I was
Oh,
like, all right,
nice.
cool, man, like, and it's pretty cool. I like it. I mean, I know. Shoot, man, I'll be going to Temple. There's going to be somebody out there. I'm gonna catch. I mean, There's a lot coming through. I mean, especially here in San Antonio, man. I mean, I've been doing this going on 2 years this Halloween, and I mean, it
Mhm.
blew up, and I kind of, I don't know, I kind of noticed it. I mean, I hadn't been like doing media for this. I was doing combat sports, which I still am, but
Yeah.
when I asked some of the people that were there, because they're like, "Oh, I've been doing this 5 years," and I said, "Man, did it like has it always been this good?" And they're like, "Nah, man, it just got this big. Like now it's like we've got like here locally we have like five promoters that are constantly like putting on shows, events, and where I mean I love it. I mean I wish all of them the
Yeah.
best, and I hope they all can keep doing it because I mean being a fan, I'm like I'm getting to meet these people. When was it? I did the Killer Clowns from Outer Space panel like a couple of weeks back.
Okay.
I did the
Yeah.
Q&A. And next week, and I'm gonna do the it's like a mini Texas Chainsaw Massacre reunion. So I'm gonna do the panel for that one. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm enjoying it. I'm like, man, I'm here talking to everybody, and I'm like, dude, like this is so real. Especially I turned 50 this year. July 15th was my birthday, and I always
Mhm.
kind of like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out in '74, so I always kind of felt like, man, that's my movie. I don't know, I love it, and so of course I enjoy it. But
Right.
having to do this panel and actually talk to these guys, I'm gonna be like, damn, that's pretty cool. That's a dream come true. I'm taking it.
Yeah, that's incredible. I am so psyched for you. I would love to moderate a panel, but I wouldn't know what to ask. I would be so starstruck.
Yeah, you see, and that's kind of the thing because like when I've done a few already, and I do commentary for combat sports, and I
Mhm.
do this, so I'm kind of used to it. But yeah, it's just like I get struck, and I'm like, oh man, like I kind of have to zone out and not be a fan. But I mean, I do ask questions,
Uh-huh.
and I try to do like a little like fun facts and just kind of like lead up to so that when we go to the panel and they get questions, they can kind of ask further. You know what I mean? Like get something
Mhm.
else out there. But yeah, but I'm looking forward to it though. So that's gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah. Are you going to post it on YouTube anywhere for
Yes,
us jealous folks to watch it?
no, yes. It's gonna be on my YouTube channel, which is coming soon
Good.
podcast. And yeah, so all of them are on there. I mean, everything. It's got different playlists. So of course, I've got the interviews, the
Mhm.
reviews, and everything. But it's definitely gonna be on there. Yeah, I'm gonna keep that.
Good, good.
Now, let me ask you. I mean, of course, projects. I mean, are you working on anything right now?
I am in the beginning stages of editing another movie that I shot last year. So the goal is to get that on Tubi as well. I'm actually in that movie. It's similar concept. It's another improv horror, and this time it's scary. I purposely told the cast, "You have to be scary. You cannot be funny." Um, so we'll see how that goes. So that should be out pretty soon. But as far as filming, I haven't written anything recently. I kind of fell into a writing slump. Some people just go through that. And then I actually watched a horror movie on Tubi, a Tubi original, and that kind of started to get the blood flowing a little bit. I really enjoyed the movie, and I was like, yeah, like this is what horror is supposed to be about. This is
Nice.
this is why I like writing it. So that was really inspirational. So hopefully I have time to work on some future scripts very soon.
No, no, for sure. And of course, I mean, when it comes to shorts, I mean, are those also like something that you just kind of like, hey, let me shoot this and get some people together and run it?
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much how it happens. My friends and I will be around and we'll say, "Oh, you guys doing anything tomorrow?" Like, "No, not really." And then, "Oh, well, let's just film something." And so we'll write it up real quick, come up with the concept or whatever. Or sometimes I'll have a short movie in mind, and I'll contact my friends and say, "Hey, you guys, have some time available in the next month or so," and we'll pick a day and we'll just make it happen.
That's cool. I like that. I mean, especially, I mean, time is in essence always, and I'm sure people have stuff to do, but the fact that they can put that
Mhm.
aside and say like, hey, let's work this day and just knock it out because, I mean, you said
Yeah.
earlier also, I mean, you've done them in one day as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. For the most part, it is one day. The longest movie that I have on YouTube, right now, I think it's like 37 minutes. that was shot in one day, and it's a found footage film. So I didn't have to worry about different camera angles or anything. So when I know that I have a bigger project but only one day to do it in, I will try to write to my advantage and, put less camera angles in there, I write to what I have.
No, and I was going to ask you, talking about camera angles, because I did notice that. Like, I mean, I'm not a professional photographer. I mean, I've got a nice camera and I shoot a lot, with combat sports.
Mhm.
But I'm all about angles. I'm all about background as far as like I use markers, like the light post and the house, and I kind of. So with this one, I mean, what was your intent to as far as the angles go? I mean, what were you looking at?
For season 666, I
Okay.
had two of the actors, actually, the two actors that play the producers in the film. They had a smaller role because they were initially going to be camera operators only.
Okay.
So we had tripods, and we set the camera angles to what we thought the actors were going to be in, to keep them in their frame. And then, because it's improv, you don't know where they're going, what they're going to say. We try to follow them as best as we could, but yeah, so it was just a whole if the cast is going to improv their lines, I guess we are going to improv our camera angles.
No, you see, and I mean, cameras. What did you guys shoot with? You don't mind me asking?
I had a Nikon D5300.
Oh, nice.
There was a Panasonic Lumix, is that what it's called?
Yeah. Okay.
G52, something like that. Yeah. And then the other camera was a D7200. So two Nikons and one Panasonic.
Oh, sweet. That's what I shoot with, that Nikon. And yeah, and I mean, that's amazing
Mhm.
because, and I was asking because for the most part, a lot of it looked raw. I mean, it looked
Mhm.
real, but I liked it
Mhm.
because it felt like I was literally like I mentioned earlier, like a documentary, like somebody was just
Yeah.
filming it. And that's the whole feel I
Yeah.
got. But I was curious because I was like, man, I wonder if they shot, and I didn't think it'd be like a Nikon, but I was like, it's a
Yeah.
great job. I mean, you guys did well with it.
Yeah, the initial concept was it was going to be more documentary style, like we were the actual camera crew on the game show. But then we were like, oh wait, if this guy is killing all the contestants, why isn't he killing the camera crew? So we
And
kind of had to change that when we
I
were
didn't
like
even think
almost
about that,
halfway
but yeah.
finished. Yeah, so then we went to mostly static shots and, brought a tripod in because we're like, no, we have to make it like this is the fourth wall
Yeah.
instead of a documentary.
No, you see, I would have, yeah, that would have been one of the comments people would have been like, "Hey, how come the cameramen are still alive?" Right?
Right. Right.
That's cool. I mean, I'm sure y'all would have came up with something. But yeah, I mean, and it's the feel that I got. I mean, that's why I was asking because it felt like people were there, filming it. I
Mhm.
mean, of course they were, but I figured that was part of it. But yeah, I mean, but of course, for those that are watching, I mean, this is the film, that we've been talking about, and of course, it is streaming. Now, when it comes to streaming, is it only on Tubi right now?
It's on Tubi. It's also on a streaming site called Fossum.
Yes.
It's awesome with an F, and it stands for Free Awesome TV. They The ads are plentiful on that streaming site. So I will warn you now, if you are going to watch it, which I hope you do, um,
Okay.
Tubi is probably your better bet.
You see, and I was gonna say because for myself, there are movies and like I guess with Netflix, it's kind of not ruined me, but it's just like I didn't realize that there were no commercials. But I like commercials. I like to, it's
Mhm.
like one of those like my oldest when we were watching a VHS one day, and it was one of those that we had to flip. I think it was like it came in two cassettes or something.
Okay, right, right.
And I was just like, oh, and I said, oh, we got to put the other one. And I said, okay, Dad, perfect. I can get more popcorn. And I was like, okay. And I was like, you know what? That's kind of the thing that I miss. I miss those little in between breaks where you're like, oh, okay, let me stretch or let me go
Yeah.
get a drink or let me. But yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to watching something with commercials because yeah, you can
Hmm.
get up and get
Yeah.
more snacks or do whatever.
Yeah. Ads don't bother me. I say I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, and I survived commercials back then. I
Oh
can
yeah.
survive commercials right now.
And talking about commercials because I do have a lot of VHS. I stopped. collecting them, I was real big to where like my thing was finding commercial movies that were recorded off TV
Yeah.
so that I could see the
Hmm.
commercials.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, man, like the commercials are on there, and I'm like, yeah, man, that's the whole thing. It's like you see commercials you haven't seen in years. You're like, oh wow, it's like
Yeah.
little time machine. It takes you back in time.
Hmm.
Now, let me ask you, as far as you say you're working on projects, of course, so hopefully something soon comes up. I mean,
Yeah.
the movie that you're editing, that you're in, when it does come out, it is going to be on Tubi.
Hopefully, that's the goal. I submit it, and then the powers that be at Tubi either say yes, we'll take it, or no, we won't. So hopefully they like the movie and they accept it. If they don't, it'll be put on YouTube, and that's where it'll live, and I'll be very happy with people watching it.
No, no, for sure, and of course, as far as social media outlets, because you guys are on Facebook and on Instagram, correct?
Yes,
And
yes.
no other platforms.
Well, for season 66, we're on Facebook and Instagram, and it's season 666 movie. My personal TikTok is horror zennial so it's XENNIAL. Because I'm technically Gen X, I think, by 5 months. So I'm on that Gen X millennial cusp, so I'm a zennial, I guess.
No, and of course, and the reason I'm asking, and I mean, of course, I've been trying to, create traffic and send people out there.
Mhm.
Of course, I mean, I do appreciate your time. I do appreciate you jumping on here. I mean, is there anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Um, just thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. I know you are a very busy man, and just getting to talk to you and getting to know you, especially in this last hour, has really meant a lot. So thank you. And if for those who watch the movie, please leave a review. It can be an honest review on Letterboxd or IMDb, wherever you see fit. So thank you very much.
No, not a problem. And of course, I mean, I'm gonna keep, sending people out there. I'm gonna keep networking and plugging you guys in. I would love to have you back on here. I mean, hopefully, if something else comes up, I mean, we can definitely talk movies or just talk about movies, that are
Yeah,
coming up.
absolutely.
Or, I got to catch up on a few, but we'll talk about one of the ones I haven't seen yet. But of
Okay.
course, I mean, don't hang up yet. Everybody out there, of course, make sure and follow up. I'm gonna be plugging in, tagging, your social media outlets,
Mhm.
and of course, I'm gonna follow you on TikTok. So I'll definitely do that.
Good.
But yeah, everybody out there, of course, make sure and support. Once again, Michelle Hanson, this is Spider Coming Soon Podcast. Till next time, follow up. And we're done.
Okay.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, thank you for jumping on this. Man, I mean, I'm going to keep promoting. And of course, I'm going to reach out and see if we can get anything else done. We'll work on
Yeah.
another episode.
Great. Well, thank you very much. If you're ever in Ohio, let me know. I have access to a podcast studio. If I can just take you on a tour of it. Anyone who has a podcast, it's always fun to see other people's digs. So
No, I appreciate that.
thank you again.
No, not a problem. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
All right. Bye.